In the folds of time, a silver necklace connects two hearts separated by destiny. In a cafe in Vermont, Julian, a restorer of broken souls, awaits a meeting he never imagined accepting. What he doesn't know is that some stories don't end, they just find new ways to continue existing. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. The cafe was quiet that cold Vermont afternoon, and Julian Mercer arrived ahead of time, as he did for every appointment that made him nervous. The window glass reflected the street movement, the comings and goings of bundled-up people, and the breath vapor in the chilly air. He watched the steam rise from the cup of coffee absent-mindedly, but what he was really trying to hold back was the emptiness that had accompanied him for the past 5 years, since Annalise, his wife, had gone. Julian was a man of skillful hands and a cautious heart. At 38, his appearance bore the mark of someone well acquainted with pain. Attentive brown eyes, yet distant, and a well-trimmed beard that concealed a slight tremor at the corner of his lips when he was nervous. As a furniture restorer, he had learned to give new life to old objects, but he had not yet managed to apply the same principle to his own existence. His small studio on a quiet street was known for the precision of his work. Julian treated each piece of wood with the same delicacy with which he had once touched Annalise's face. The townspeople said he had hands that spoke to the wood, knowing exactly where to polish, where to reinforce, where to leave the marks of time untouched. Beauty is in the scars, he used to tell customers, although he had never managed to apply that philosophy to his own wounds. That morning, before leaving for the meeting, he had hesitated in front of the mirror. The reflection showed a man who had learned to live with silence. Behind him, Annalise's studio remained untouched. Dried brushes, an unfinished canvas, a glass with a bit of wine he never had the courage to wash. On the dresser, the picture frame displayed her smile, and around her neck the silver necklace he had commissioned. Julian closed his eyes and let the memory come, like an old and familiar visit. He remembered the day he gave it to her. "When life gets tough, touch it and remember to breathe," he had said. She smiled, light as a promise. Her fingers, always stained with ink, traced the outline of the small oval locket. "It's perfect," she whispered, her green eyes shining as they always did when something deeply moved her. The memory always came in fragments. The wind in the tall grass, Annalise's white dress moving in the sun, the honeysuckle climbing up the fence of the lake house. He saw himself, nervous, placing the necklace on her neck. "What if it breaks?" she had asked. "Then I'll fix it. It's what I do best." She laughed. "Promise?" He promised. And he never fulfilled it. Now, sitting in that cafe, Julian wondered what the hell he was doing there. 6 months ago, his sister had created a profile for him on a dating app. "You need to start living again," she insisted, while he protested. Eventually, he agreed just to keep her from bothering him. He never imagined he would actually set up a date one day. But then came Celine. First, there were occasional messages, then daily conversations. Something in her words touched him. Perhaps the way she talked about old books, or how she described the sunrise from her apartment. "Broken things have their own kind of beauty," she wrote once, without knowing that that phrase perfectly applied to his soul. The sound of the cafe door opening brought him back to the present. The cold wind blew inside, bringing the scent of a woman. Grey coat, golden hair tied back casually, a calm, almost shy smile. Celine Archer. She looked around until she found his face. Julian stood up, and the moment she approached, the world seemed to unravel. The necklace. Fine. Silver. The same oval shape. The same gentle shine. His heart tightened. For a moment, time split between what he saw and what he remembered. Celine didn't notice the impact immediately. She just smiled. "Julian?" He blinked, swallowing hard. "Hi. Sorry, it's just that... this necklace." She brought her hand to the pendant, surprised. "You recognized it?" Julian hesitated, his eyes fixed on that piece that seemed impossible to exist there. I had one made just like it, for someone I loved very much. The silence that followed was dense but not uncomfortable. Celine sat down, placed her bag on the chair, and spoke softly. I bought this necklace in a second-hand shop on Maple Street, Harbour and Hearth. The clasp was broken, but I thought it was beautiful. I have a habit of fixing old things. Julian observed Celine more closely now. She was in her early 30s, with blue-grey eyes that seemed to change shade with the light. Her hands were delicate yet firm, hands of someone who worked with precision. Small spots of ink coloured her fingers, painfully reminding him of Annalise, albeit in a different way. I'm a bookbinder, she explained, noticing his gaze. I work restoring old books. I give new life to stories that were falling apart. She smiled, and there was something in that smile that seemed to understand more than words could say. Julian felt something break inside him, and at the same time a strange serenity enveloped him. May I see? He asked, indicating the necklace. Celine did not hesitate. She removed the necklace and placed it in his hand. The touch of the metal was cold, but the weight was the same. He opened the small locket. Inside, a dry honeysuckle petal, fragile as time. The memory came back with force. The hospital, the smell of disinfectant, the distant noise of monitors. He was holding Annalise's hand. You're going to get through this, he said, without believing it. Dr. Miles Carter had just left the room, with that expression doctors have when the news isn't good. If I don't make it, she murmured, promise to keep breathing for me. He tried to smile but couldn't. She touched the necklace with trembling fingers. Love, it's just a different way of staying. Hours later, the continuous sound of the monitor announced the end. Back in the present, Julian closed the locket and returned it carefully. This necklace, it was hers. She died 5 years ago. Celine looked at him, unafraid of the subject, without pity, just respect. I'm sorry. I didn't know. He sighed. Neither did I know it was still around. She hesitated. Do you want me to return it? Julian watched her. Her hands had small traces of blue paint, remnants of a day of artistic work. Do you paint? He asked. I bind books. I repair old stories. I guess I have a thing for second chances. He smiled weakly. So maybe it's only fair that you keep it. The meeting went on, surprisingly lighter than Julian had expected. They talked about books, about wood, about the harsh winter. Celine shared about her artisanal bookbinding shop, about how she had learned the craft from her grandfather. Julian shared stories about restored furniture, eccentric clients, and gradually small fragments of his life with Annalise. She was an artist, he explained, as they walked afterward through the snow-covered park. She painted landscapes, but mostly people. She used to say that every face tells a story, and she was just translating it. Celine listened with genuine attention. And what did she see in your face? The question caught him off guard. She used to say that she saw someone trying to fix what didn't need fixing. And was it true? Julian paused, watching the vapour of his breath in the cold air. Probably. I think I've always tried to fix everything around me. Except for what really mattered. A few days later they went together to Harbour and Hearth store. It was a small cosy establishment with shelves of antique items and a yellowish lighting that gave everything a nostalgic feel. The owner, Mrs. Whitmore, a lady with a colourful scarf and keen eyes, greeted them with curiosity. The silver necklace, she repeated when Celine explained what they were looking for. Ah, yes, I remember. It came in a donation box. Mrs. Whitmore searched an old ledger, its pages yellowed with time. It came from St. Bridget's Hospital, she explained. Donations of items forgotten in wards. Julian recognised the hospital's name, the same one where Annalise had passed away. He remained silent, and Selene simply placed her hand on his arm. Sometimes there are no questions to be asked. It's strange, commented Mrs. Whitmore. Usually personal belongings are returned to the family. She looked at Julian with an expression mixing curiosity and compassion. I asked to be buried with the necklace, Julian explained in a low voice. But at the last moment, I couldn't. I thought it was selfish. So I left it with her clothes at the hospital. I never thought I would end up here. Outside, the snow was beginning to fall. Sometimes fate has a strange way of giving back what still needs to be healed, Selene said. Or maybe it's just waiting for the right moment to make sense, Julian replied. They walked together along the white sidewalk. Selene held the necklace between her fingers. What if she's trying to tell you something? Julian looked at the pendant, then at her. Maybe she is. What? That love does not die. It changes shape. She smiled, and her smile seemed to contain something of all the promises that were once lost. He reached out his hand and she held it. The wind blew, and for a moment, Julian swore he could smell honeysuckle in the air. In the weeks that followed, they continued to meet. Julian showed Selene his studio, the tools neatly aligned, the unfinished projects. She brought old books she was restoring, hand-bound with delicate details in leather and marbled paper. In one of those meetings, Julian finally opened the door to Annalise's studio. Dust danced in the sunlight streaming through the window. He hadn't entered there for almost 3 years. She had talent, Selene said, observing the canvases leaned against the wall. Vibrant landscapes, intense portraits, colourful abstractions. Annalise's essence was there, preserved in layers of paint. She did, Julian agreed, and for the first time the word in the past tense didn't hurt so much. Selene approached an unfinished canvas. It was a self-portrait of Annalise, with the necklace around her neck. May I? She asked, looking at Julian. He nodded, knowing what she meant. The next day, Selene returned with a small watercolour set. Julian watched her as she, with delicacy and respect, put the final touches on the unfinished portrait. It wasn't an attempt to mimic Annalise's style, but a gentle homage. The result was a piece that seemed to exist between 2 times, between 2 women, between 2 loves. Thank you, he said simply when she finished. In the following months, the routine gained colour. Selene would appear in the studio with coffee and old books. He, who once restored furniture as a distraction, now did it for pleasure. Laughter returned to fill the space that had only known the sound of solitude before. One afternoon, Julian found Selene sitting on the garden bench, the necklace glistening softly against her blue sweater. She was reading an old book, the yellowed pages contrasting with her light green painted nails. You know what impresses me most about you? He asked, sitting down next to her. Selene looked up from the book. What? How are you not afraid of the past, of my past? She closed the book and set it aside. We all have stories, Julian. The ones that make us and the ones that break us. I'm not afraid of yours because it's part of who you are now. Julian took a deep breath, the spring air full of promises. For a long time I thought I was betraying her by wanting to move on. Selene touched the necklace. And now? Now I understand that the greatest gift she gave me was teaching me how to love. And I honour that gift when I continue to love, not when I stop. On a spring morning, Julian entered the studio and found her binding an album. On the cover, in golden letters, it read, "For love that never ends." She looked up, smiling. Look. She showed the necklace now with a new clasp, restored. I managed to fix it. He approached, touched the pendant and then her face. I told you I know how to fix things. And I told you I like stories with second chances. Julian laughed, a light, almost new laugh. On the wall, there was a framed photo. The wedding with Annalise, the fence covered with honeysuckles. Next to it, a new image, him and Selene, in the same cafe where it all began. The album Selene was preparing contained blank pages, but the first ones were already filled. Photos of Julian working in his studio, Selene with her books, walks in the park, simple dinners, and on a special page, a photo of Annalise that Julian had chosen, her smiling, with the necklace on her neck, her eyes shining with life. "I thought we should include her," Selene explained when she saw the surprise in his eyes. "She will always be part of your story, of our story in some way." That night, on Julian's house porch, under a starry sky, he finally found the words he had been searching for months. "You know, for so long I felt divided," he confessed, "as if loving you meant betraying what I felt for Annalise. But now I understand that the heart is not a place of limited space. It expands, it grows, it transforms." Selene squeezed his hand. "Like the necklace." "Like the necklace," Julian agreed. "It broke, got lost and found a new way back. Different, but whole." Annalise's love hadn't disappeared. It had just changed form, as if fate had decided that some stories don't end. They just find a new way to begin. Julian wrapped his arm around Selene's shoulders. "She asked me to keep breathing for her," he said in a tone of peace. "I think now I can breathe for us." Selene rested her head on his chest, the necklace shining between them. Outside, the wind blew gently, carrying the scent of newly bloomed flowers and perhaps a distant echo of a promise fulfilled. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.